So how is Assassin's Creed Shadows? I mean, realistically, honestly, how is it? I'm going to be giving you guys my full non-spoiler, spoiler-free review here in this video. Completely honest, my own thoughts, completely subjective, obviously, completely my own. Now, I do want to say a huge thanks to Ubisoft for providing me with a copy of Assassin's Creed Shadows. I am not obligated to say anything nice, and I'm not getting paid for this. And you're going to hear that I'm going to have critiques, okay? So before you rush to click off the video, this guy, he got the game for free, can't trust him. Listen, I'm going to give you guys my honest critiques. Now, listen, you know, am I going to be saying everything that you want me to say? Probably not. I'm not going to be on either side of the fence, whether good or bad, but you might be surprised at what I end up rating this game. You know, it might not be as bad as some people and it might not be as good as other people. So we're going to get to that. But listen, again, non-spoilery stuff. I'm going to try to put some mostly maybe trailer B-roll in the background and maybe a little bit of kind of non-specific gameplay or something, or like early in the game kind of gameplay in the background and different things like that. I'll try to figure something like that out. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump straight into this. Now, I just want to get this like kind of rapid fire as best as I can. I want to say the world is fun to explore. It's a really nice world. It's massive. It is a massive world. And sometimes that's actually plays against it because you end up with a lot of terrain, like a lot of hills and stuff that it's cool at first, but sometimes you get a lot of kind of, terrain where if you're trying to cut through hills instead of staying on the actual path and all the different like actual pathways, it can get a little bit annoying, especially trying to like, you know, once you get into those hills, you know, trying to climb up them, you're just going to keep sliding down. Other points, you know, obviously you might be getting stuck in all the trees and the stuff that is there. It looks cool from like, you know, vantage points and stuff, but when you're actually trying to maneuver through it, if you're trying to take a shortcut, it can get pretty annoying. But that's kind of my biggest gripe with the actual overworld itself. It's cool because there's seasonal changes, so you know, periodically the season's going to change, so it's not necessarily tied to the actual story. From what I can tell, it's just more of like the more you play the game, time progresses in game and there's season changes, so you're going to see all the seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. So it's going to, you know, at some points there will be snow, which could be, you know, it looks great. Snow is a little bit annoying to maneuver through because when you're in the deep snow. So anyways, yeah. So, you know, the world is very, very nice. It is a massive, massive, massive world. Now, one of my biggest fears was, you know, coming off of Valhalla, which was a pretty decent sized map. There was a lot of bloat in that game. I think they did a better job at maintaining that. It didn't feel as much kind of bloat content in this game, maybe slightly in my opinion, but Valhalla drove me nuts with that because everything just felt kind of like the same old rehashed, do this, and there's some of that in Shadows, where there is some of that. Like I said, there's some bloat, but nowhere near compared to Valhalla. Now, obviously, it's you know, it's weird because, you know, coming from Mirage was kind of more classic feel of an Assassin's Creed game. This goes in the opposite direction. It goes back to kind of like the sort of RPG style. You got the leveling system, which I don't like. That was my biggest gripe with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I actually never finished Odyssey. I got through like maybe 2/3 of the game, maybe 3/4, whatever. And then I just never finished it because I got basically level capped, and I'm like, I don't want to do a bunch of side quests to just kind of have to, you know, proceed. Now, I did have to do a bunch of side quests in order to, you know, get my level up to be able to proceed in Shadows, but it wasn't as tedious as I felt like it was in Odyssey, but it was still annoying that I had to do that, or it felt like I had to do that in order to kind of progress the main story. And I just don't like the leveling system. I just, you know, I'm not a fan. There were some elements that are kind of cool. You know, there's like a whole skill tree system that's based on knowledge points. There's a bunch of different things you can do across the world. You know, like pray at shrines or whatever, meditate and different things like that. And those are going to be knowledge points. And as you increase your knowledge points and different things like that, you unlock basically more nodes on the skill tree, and there's different skill trees for both Naoe and Yasuke. So obviously Naoe is more like the assassin, right? She is the assassin. Yasuke is more of a samurai, and yeah, you can play most of the game. Like most when you're going through most of the game, it asks you who you want to kind of play as. There's certain segments in the game that naturally are locked to one character or the other, but I played probably like 75% of the game just as Naoe, and then I played at some points I chose Yasuke over Naoe just because he's a big brute, and he's a little less squishy than Naoe, so it's kind of easier to you know, fight with him, I found, which, you know, it kind of felt like he was like a little bit of an easier mode for me, you know? So I did that at times with some of the more quests where you kind of like more in your face, where maybe a little less stealthy approach and whatnot. So yeah, so I think it was good in terms of like the storylines and stuff. You know, I think the story was pretty solid. I really like Naoe's story, especially, you know, there's this whole story with her family and everything like that. I'm not gonna spoil anything, and kind of relating to, you know, obviously the creed, right? The Assassin's Creed, and you learn about that as you kind of go on, and that's kind of a mystery for a lot of the game, and you start learning a little bit more as you progress through the game. I felt like they didn't go as deep into like the whole kind of creed and the Templars and I mean, just, you know, they went into the Templars, but not as deep as I expected them to in an Assassin's Creed game. It felt slightly less of an Assassin's Creed game because it felt like there was a little less of a focus on that kind of element of it. And I expected there to be a little bit more focus on that. So I was a little bit surprised, especially when I got to the end of the game. I was very surprised. You go watch my reaction to the ending. I was surprised when that was just kind of like, I was like, oh, okay, that's how it ends. Okay. And it felt kind of anticlimactic in my opinion, personally speaking. Again, you know, you're gonna learn about the Templars and, you know, the creed and blah, blah, blah. Like everything you're used to with Assassin's Creed games is going to be, you know, obviously featured in the game. It's not completely absent, but it was just kind of, it kind of felt a little soft, a little like, not soft, like a little lacking, I guess you could say. And yeah, and I felt like Yasuke, as interesting of a character as he is, again, I know there's all these kind of controversy behind, like, you know, what, you know, his actual history. Was he actually a samurai? Was he not? Look, I'm going into a video game. It's like, I looked at some of that. There's a huge debate online. Some people make some pretty good arguments that he was. Some people say like he's not. It's whatever. It's like the historicity side of things. It's like, I get it. I would like there to be some, like, as much authentic and accurate, you know, historicity as possible in the game. But I'm just going in like from a perspective, like, look, this is a video game, and what am I thinking of it from terms of story? I think he was an interesting character. I wasn't like super excited about him necessarily. I was more interested in Naoe, especially her being kind of like, you know, the assassin. And I don't know, she's usually, to me, I was just more interested in that character over Yasuke. I didn't. You know, I thought I was going to not care about Yasuke's story. I'll be honest. Going into it, I thought I was just going to be like, whatever. I'm just going to completely play as Naoe. And if you watch my playthrough, I mean, again, most of the time I'm choosing her. But again, if you do watch my playthrough, you see also that, like, you know, there's times where I'm talking about Yasuke's story and I'm like, okay, it's interesting. I like the story that they told, you know, whether it's, you know, historically accurate or not, it's like, whatever. I'm looking at this, it's like, this is a fictional version of the character, and that's it. And, you know, whatever. So, you know, from that side of things, I'm like, yeah, okay, you know, it's kind of interesting. But again, I wasn't super excited about it. And I felt like they maybe put a little too much focus on him. Like, again, you can play like the majority of the game, 75 to 80% of the game, probably just as Naoe. But even then, the times where like they kind of, it's hard to explain without spoiling anything, but basically the focus that they did put onto him in certain parts, I felt took away from the opportunity to be putting more of a spotlight on Naoe and her story. It's not to say that I didn't want to see his own story, but it's kind of, there's some parts, some quests specifically, again, I can't spoil it, that it felt like, wow, they should have been focusing on Naoe in this section, and instead they chose to focus on Yasuke. And I was like, I don't like that. So that was one of the gripes I had. The gameplay, like I said, it's really fun. You're right. Naoe's a little bit more squishy of a character. She's more of the assassin. You know, she has her katanas and stuff. There's a wide variety of different weapons for each character to choose from. Yasuke is more of like the brute samurai. So they both offer their own kind of, you know, gameplay that is really intriguing and interesting. In terms of the characters and stuff are very interesting. I played it in immersive mode. That means like everything pretty much is in English that would be in English. So if there's English dialogue with, you know, certain parts or like my menus, different things like that, it's going to be in English. Otherwise, everything's in native. So if there's Portuguese being spoken, it was in Portuguese. If there's Japanese being spoken, it was in Japanese. And I thought it sounded really good. I thought the Japanese voice acting was really, really good. I'm not a Japanese expert. I'm not fluent in Japanese. I know a very small amount of Japanese, and it's not enough for me to really kind of say anything. But I'll say that the Japanese voice acting sounded good from my English ears, and it sounded, you know, as native as I could make it out to be, comparing to like, and I've watched, you know, for context, I've watched a lot of a lot of Japanese content. I'm not talking about anime. I'm talking about like, Japanese YouTubers and stuff, just for, immersion and stuff. Cause I am interested in the language, but anyways, that's not the point. The point is like, have something to compare it to, even if I don't really understand it too well. But anyways, it sounded good. I will say my gripe with the voice acting is when I listen to the English voice acting. When I listen to the English voice acting, I've seen some gameplay videos from, friends and different things like that. And I'm like, it doesn't sound very great to me. I feel like the English voice acting in this game, and it could, I don't know if that's because I just got so used to hearing the Japanese voice acting. That could be, I just want to put that out there, but it didn't sound very good to me. It sounded kind of poor to my ears. Again, it could just be because I was so used to hearing these characters in Japanese. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really like the English voice acting in this game. So I like that there's an immersive mode. There's a guided mode, meaning it'll just kind of show you where the quests are instead of having to kind of hunt for them. Otherwise you'd have to send scouts out and you got to look for like clues and yada yada. If you like that kind of sort of thing, it's available. I played in canon mode, meaning that there's no multiple choices for me. You can not choose that mode and have the multiple choices, but the multiple choices were taken away because I just wanted to see what is considered canon. And so I played in that mode. And I think the story was fine. I've heard that apparently you can pursue different kinds of relationships in the game. I didn't really experience that because, again, I had no multiple choices for me because I was in canon mode. And for any kind of potential relationships, they just kind of went the neutral route with the canon mode. So they didn't kind of go one way or the other. It was just kind of like, they were just, it was just kind of, again, neutral, I guess you could say. So I don't really have a lot of experience with that side of things because, like I said, I played in canon mode, which I think is cool. I do like immersive mode, by the way. I want to say that I hope more games do that. Again, the world is very beautiful, very nice. It ran pretty good. I was playing in fidelity mode because I want to see like the nice visuals. And for an Assassin's Creed game, as much as I love like the 60 FPS, I was like, I can settle with 30 for the the visuals. I'm a game to game kind of guy. It depends, right? Some games are like I gotta have my 60, but some games I'm like I'll sacrifice 60 for the visuals. I was playing on PS5 for what it's worth, not the PS5 Pro, just the kind of launch PS5. And yeah, the game overall was pretty good. It took me about 30 hours total to beat it, but I spent about 4 or 5 of those hours kind of, doing a little bit of like looking for synchronization spots, which kind of made it a little bit faster though when I had quests that were in areas that I had, fast travel locations. So, kind of maybe weighed itself out. So I would say the game is roughly 30 hours just for the main story, but the main story kind of forces you to do a little bit of side stuff to kind of, get your XP up a little bit for this, stupid, atrocious leveling system, which I really hope they do away with, or they do a way better job at it in some other way that, you're not forced doing side quests to like, level up and stuff like that, which again, maybe that was just my experience. All in all, the ending was a little bit kind of anticlimactic in my opinion, and I felt like it was a little bit weird. The music, mixed feelings on the music. There's a lot of the like kind of normal kind of, I would say atmospheric music that was really good. Sets the tone, sets the vibe, beautiful pieces of music. But then there was some other kind of music and kind of like some of the soundtracks and different things like that, more like lyrical based songs, songs with lyrics that felt kind of out of place. There was like a handful of songs where I'm like, this feels weird. It feels out of place and it kind of almost feels cringy even. One of them being like, well, actually there's many different ones, so there's no point to me to name any, but yeah, some of the song choices were kind of cringy. And to me, that took away from the musical side of things. Overall, I would say like 80% at least of the music was really good. It was maybe like 25% that I was like, weird choice, man. Like I don't think I would have went that way at all. It felt off, and just like it just felt like it didn't belong, if you will. So there was that. Like I said, all in all, I think the game is pretty solid. It's a game, if I'm being brutally honest, it's a game that I don't know if I could recommend or if I would be comfortable paying full price for. Again, that's subjective. For some, what worth is sort of subjective when it comes to these sort of things, right? From my perspective, it's the kind of game that I would probably wait for a sale to buy, personally speaking. But at the same time, it's hard to say, right? Like, because You know, are there certain elements that lack authenticity in terms of the historicity and just, you know, respect to the Japanese culture? Maybe, you know, there, again, I didn't kind of go into this sort of hyper fixated on those elements. I was just kind of trying to go in experiencing an Assassin's Creed game. And there was a couple things that I was like, huh, that's a little bit, you know, odd, but I wasn't overthinking it necessarily, right? I wasn't looking at the tatami mats being like, hey, there's square tatami. Well, there was only rectangular tatami back in the day. Square tatami is more of a modern thing or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't thinking like that. So I don't know, like in terms of just it being a video game, just kind of rating it off of that. Again, I'm not a historical expert, geographic expert in terms of Japan. I can't really give you too much on that side of things. I gave you most of my thoughts. I think I would give this game a 7.5 out of 10. It's solid. It's not horrible. And again, you got to keep in mind, I think I personally think I'm a little bit of a generous reviewer. I will say that honestly. So a 7.5 for me might be a 7 for other people. Keep that in mind. But again, I had fun with the game. If you're into, you know, Assassin's Creed games, I don't think it's a game that's necessarily completely worth skipping over. I don't think it is. I don't like, some people say it's that bad. I don't think it is at all. I really think it's a solid Assassin's Creed game. I would put it probably in a similar category, you know, to Valhalla. Valhalla had its issues, but it also had its strengths. If I was to rate Valhalla, I would probably actually, I don't know. It's been a long time. I don't even know if I reviewed that game. I probably would have given that game maybe like a 7 or 7.5 as well. It's been so long since I played that game, it's hard to compare, but you know, it's probably in that same kind of tier, if you will, right? It's not like an S tier game. You know, it might be like a B tier Assassin's Creed. You know, I like the Japanese setting. It could have been done better. And there's certain elements that could have been done better. And again, the ending was anticlimactic in my opinion. And I feel like there was not as much of a focus on the Creed as I would have liked to see, and different things like that. But it was a fun experience. And I got to give credit where credit is due. And I also got to take credit away where, you know, or points away where I feel like there were shortcomings. So that's my thoughts. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I'm not going to rant any further than that. I think that covers as much as possible. Like I said, leave your comments. There's a lot to these games, especially these bigger games. So, you know, I'm sure there's going to be something I end up thinking about after that. I'm going to be like, I forgot to include this, but I think that covers kind of the gist of it. I don't want to make this an hour-long review, so I'll leave it at that. And if you have questions, leave them down in the comments below. Like I said, the kind of game that I don't know if I would be comfortable paying full price. Might wait for a sale, maybe not. Depends on the person. But definitely a game that if you're into Assassin's Creed kind of style games, I would say is 100% worth the playthrough. Especially if you're into, like, you know, the Japanese culture. Again, did they do the culture completely right? No, in some places probably not. But you know, I think they got enough that feels right to my English ears and eyes that, you know, felt okay, you know. And I'll say one last thing. If you look up Nachi Falls, it's a location in real life. And that's one location that I was actually very surprised that it was pretty much like a 1-for-1 in the game. Like there's some locations and there's some things in the game that if you do look up, it is pretty authentic. So got to give credit where credit is due. And I was impressed with that. So those are my thoughts. Leave your thoughts in the comments or questions or whatever. And hope to see you guys soon. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. If you didn't, dislike it, let me know why so I can improve the content in the future. And I hope to see you guys in a future video. Till then, friends, game on. Thanks for watching.
Hey you! What are you doing? Join the Skeleton Army! Do it today! Don't wait till tomorrow because tomorrow might never come. The Earth is gonna fade, that's inevitable. The next second of your life's not even promised, so you better think about where you're going, and you might as well just join the Skeleton Army. Plus, we do kinda like you a little bit, so it'd be nice to see you around here. But if you don't want to, hey, your loss. See you later!